It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by CartKing.com. Give me a call at 877-986-7771. That's cart-king.com. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage right now could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail, coffee, and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application, from large, heated, secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee stations or coffee carts. CartKing.com designs and builds them all. You go to their website, you go to cart-king.com. You pick out the kind of cart or kiosk that you want. They help you design it, they custom build it, and then they ship it worldwide. You can't beat these guys. CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. That's how you get a good deal. I'm Ed Opperman, president of Opperman Investigations, Digital Forensic Consulting. You can reach me at emailrevealer.com. You can go there and get an autographed copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. Okay, I've been looking forward to this. We have a guest on our show. I was a guest on his show a couple of times. It's Nathan Stolpman. I've been calling him Stolpman. Maybe because my name is Opperman. I think everybody's it's like me. But it's Nathan Stolpman, and his website is his YouTube channel is Lift the Veil. But I understand also too now he's on iHeart and iTunes and stuff like that as well, and these different podcast forums. He's got his own clothing line too, truthclothing.io. And we're recording this on September 11th, and he tells me he has some big sales. Maybe he can extend those to the weekend. Nathan, are you there?
Yep.
Nathan.
There we go. There, I got myself off mute. Yes, I'm here. And thanks. Yeah, that sales all week. 10911 is the coupon code for at the website. Anyway, thanks for having me on. I was going to look up the first time I ever had you on my show. Not sure if it was as long as a couple years ago, but we've had a few conversations before.
Nah, no way. It wasn't that long ago. It couldn't have been. I hope not.
I have to look.
Yeah, because I just had a birthday yesterday. So if the years are flying by that fast, I'm in big trouble. Then Nathan, tell the audience about yourself. Who is Nathan Stolpman?
Well, in terms of this business, I started making videos on YouTube. I kind of woke up to the 9/11 thing, and it is 9/11 now. So that was the first thing, is I was watching videos on YouTube, basically, about what really might have happened on September 11th. And then, I just looked at the facts. I looked at some pretty dry presentations, and they showed, all the evidence I needed to say that the story wasn't right, that they really fooled us. And I guess that made me mad, and it made me want to tell other people about it. I figured if I could watch something, put aside, preconceptions about what's possible or what's not possible, or how much we could be lied to, and just look at the facts, that I was able to determine that there was something, really, really wrong with the official story. And I thought to myself that if I could do that, and I'm a reasonable person, then I can explain it to people and kind of point out where we're being lied to in the mainstream media, and just in general, even down to spiritual levels. So I was selling Bentleys at the time. For 12 years, I was selling exotic cars and kind of doing the whatever thing people do when they're in the Matrix. And then I decided to start making videos on YouTube. Didn't know anything about it, and sort of made videos actually about things like Sandy Hook or the Boston bombings, false flags, hoaxes, what have you. And then gradually got into doing a live show. And I've been doing a live show since before the election in 2016. And now live streaming has become kind of a big thing in social media, particularly on YouTube. And since I first had you on the show, I had probably 20,000, 30,000 subscribers. Now I'm up to 65,000 subscribers, and just enjoying it. People seem to appreciate it, and I love what I do, and I guess that's maybe the reason it's been it seems like it's working out right now, as long as they don't delete my YouTube channel, which I guess could happen at any time.
It does seem like you have a gift for this, in not just the research, but then also to presenting the information on the fly. It appears sometimes, pretty much, right? Or do you do a lot of preparations before these live streams?
Well, I do. I use this other platform, Twitch, and I'll be live sometimes for an hour or two before I go live on YouTube, preparing for what I'm going to present. But I just really enjoy the format of doing live presentations because I really feel like I'm talking to somebody in real time, and there's something about it that's kind of magical, and I really think that the whole concept of live video is really catching on, and people are starting to watch YouTube like they watch TV, and interacting with each other, and so it's a really neat thing to be a part of.
Okay, I would guess you're about 40 years old.
I am turning 40 in a few months.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
A little under 40. Okay, and you're married and you have a cat.
We have a cat that produces the show from behind me typically, and then my wife I imported from the UK with her Boston Terrier. So now we have two animals and an imported bride. So it's a full house.
And you live in Southern California.
We live on the Central Coast, near Pismo Beach.
Ah, very nice.
If you know where that's at, north of Santa Barbara, basically. Really, really nice. It's nice there. Nice weather.
And besides YouTube and Twitch, the show is also on some podcast forums now, right?
Yeah. You can, just by looking up Lift the Veil, iTunes, Stitcher, just like you have your podcast. Yeah, just search it there, and I want to be on as many platforms as possible because it's been so unpredictable on YouTube. I've had my channel deleted twice from YouTube, so it's been important to me to establish some kind of, some places where people can go to get the show in case it disappears from YouTube, which I had, an important video totally removed by YouTube recently, and then people just can't see it. So.
Yeah, I lost a channel too. My first channel, they just deleted one day with no reason why, no excuse, no nothing. And then just recently they demonetized me for 100 days, and they just remonetized it. It's just inching its way back up.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were you covering that you think that happened for?
Well, the first time I had some stalkers. I had active, organized stalkers that were just stalking me, and making complaints and flagging and everything. But this recent time, they claimed that I was playing other people's content. Yeah.
Is that possible? You don't even...
I know.
You don't really play clips.
I know. And that's what their excuse was. And they just kept the money for 100 days, and then just, they started me back up again. Now, how are you avoiding YouTube coming down on you with the censorship? Are you holding back on titles and keywords and stuff?
To some extent, I do. And I just try to present things that are within the guidelines as far as I see them, and I try to avoid saying, you can't say something, for example, like you can't say a school shooting didn't happen, or, you just can't say that on YouTube, and they finally made that clear, and you, to a certain extent, you can't even ask questions about it.
Right.
So you have to make a decision at that point whether your integrity or whatever you feel like it is that makes you feel like you have to say something, whether that's worth it or whether you want to continue on making videos. The trouble gets where YouTube becomes unpredictable and you just don't know why they might flag you for one thing or another. For example, after the shooting in Florida, the high school shooting, all of us, if you talked about that guy, David Hogg, you got a strike, basically, and you didn't know that in advance. You didn't know in advance, literally you couldn't say anything with David Hogg in the title. They gave you a strike. So it's things like that make it difficult to operate. And then the gang stalking, I've been a victim of that too, where I had another YouTube channel say to all of his followers to flag every one of my videos at one point, and then my channel, a week later was deleted. So.
Yeah, that seems to be a YouTube issue as well, where other channels become competitive with you and then target you with their rabid followers, and then these people are rabid followers. Oh my God, what do we get ourselves into here, man?
I know, right? If I had known that I was going to have to worry about other YouTube channels making videos about me and people telling lies about me, just recently, because the latest coverage, somebody who's supposed to be a survivor just started saying, they were a victim of me, doxing them, and it's not true. It came out of nowhere, and the only communication I have with that woman was her stalking me, saying to me that she was going to hire a private investigator to follow me around, say I might see her around town, that kind of gangster, which maybe you've experienced too, and I wouldn't have known in advance. How you can get targeted and what you have to put up with.
Yeah. So then you say you got started with 9/11. Ultimately, what kind of conclusion did you come to with 9/11?
Ultimately, let's see. Well, I think because of the so-called dancing Israelis,
right.
And a lot of Israeli activity going on. I don't know if you ever saw the thing about the Israeli art students that were in there. It just seemed like it has Mossad fingerprints on it, just the way it was done. And so I think they played a big part in it. Oh, and then there was another story actually about a guy who in November of 2000 was at a Jewish cemetery and overheard men speaking in Hebrew saying the Americans will know terror when the planes hit the Twin Towers in September. So this guy claims that that's what he overheard said, and then he went to report it to the FBI, and said that he wouldn't say it if he couldn't be guaranteed protection, and they wouldn't guarantee him protection. And anyway, actually, one of the agents that met with that guy is tied to George Webb, by the way. So this is actually kind of interesting. So one of the agents, Robin Laird Gritz, was one of the two agents that met with that guy in June of 2001, before 9/11, a guy that supposedly had foreknowledge of it. And then as far as the conspiracy stuff, I don't think there were any planes. That's just my personal opinion based on the research I've done, based on the footage from the Pentagon, from Flight 93, there's just nothing there. And then as far as the physics for the airplanes going to the buildings, but I don't think it's that important to get into details. People will say, "Oh, you're crazy. How could?" So the main thing is the government knew about it. The media covered it up. And it wasn't 20, Islamic terrorists pulling it off by themselves with box cutters,
Yeah, and it's important not to get too lost in the details, because
right.
They can throw in so many monkey wrenches all over the place.
Yeah, people think it's directed energy weapons or all kinds of different stuff, but it doesn't matter. I mean, main thing is we were lied to. On a major scale. And it's important. There should be a new investigation. I mean, the investigation was a joke. It was a cover-up.
Yeah, you think now Rudy Giuliani, best friends with Trump, running around all over the place. You think that, since Trump is such a great guy, he's such a truther out there that, Anyway. Okay, so now you mentioned, you might as well move on, right? You mentioned Robin Greitz. Okay, and matter of fact, pretty much the only thing I know about this is from watching clips people sent me from your show. Give us a little background on Robin Greitz, and then we'll get into the whole Stu Webb stuff.
Okay. So Robin Greitz. Okay, so what happened was, and I don't know if you looked into this, the impetus for this whole thing is that this woman, Jenny Moore,
right,
who went by Task Force and had a YouTube channel, was hanging out with George Webb, was actually apparently his lead researcher for almost a year, it turned out. And then it's disputed whether they might have been boyfriend, girlfriend, but he says they weren't, George Webb, that is. And she allegedly was looking into child trafficking and then was going to bring a suit involving a victim of Bill Clinton, basically someone who claimed to have been raped by Bill Clinton. And he's 26 years old now, and she had this victim and was going to present something, and she died. She suddenly died in her hotel room, and of course it was reported as if, she was looking at child trafficking. She had something on Bill Clinton. There's the Clinton body count, etc. People immediately suspect foul play, and then for some reason this person, Robin Greitz, was listed as next of kin. And boy, it's actually kind of I don't know how much to get into it because. To be honest, it's messing with something kind of serious. I mean, what we ended up showing is she was for some reason contacted as next of kin for Jenny Moore. Okay. And I was trying to figure out why that was. Apparently she didn't even know Jenny Moore's last name. And apparently the way she found next of kin was by Googling her phone number and getting her last name from George Webb. By Googling her phone number, she found next of kin and contacted them. So it's really, I couldn't figure out. It's like, why was she listed as next of kin? And then they changed the story. George Webb said, no, actually, George Webb says, I gave Prince George, he did this publicly on Twitter, I gave Prince George's County police your number to get next of kin. Again, I don't know why. She didn't even know Jenny's last name. Then it turns out this woman with a long FBI history, 16 years with the FBI, doing counterterrorism, working on major cases, including the plane that hit the Pentagon, which I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that wasn't a plane, but there should have been, first of all, footage from 100 cameras, which all I believe was confiscated. So she investigated that and the Boston bombings. And so I thought to myself, well, if she's a real whistleblower, which she supposedly is, why didn't she blow the whistle on 9/11, or the Boston bombings? And so I was asking those questions. Then we have her on her LinkedIn page. It says she's a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, And you look into that, and the guy, London, I think it's Herbert London, he's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. He works with BlackRock. He's, on the board of BlackRock. He's American Jewish Congress. He's got all these connections. And so I pointed that out. And then George Webb was doing a live stream, and this other person goes by Queen Tut or other names. She was telling him she was a member of this organization, and he said, no way, that's impossible. This is a deep state kind of operation. There's no way she would be a part of it. And then he finds out she was, and has to backpedal. But I don't know. I mean, considering the connections, I just thought it was weird. She's involved, and then this person died of what they say are natural causes. But we haven't seen an autopsy yet. George Webb was living in the same hotel, and he was apparently with another woman who went by Deep NSA. And And the only thing we know about deep NSA and the woman who died, Jenny Moore, is that they at one point had an argument over a rocking chair. That's what George Webb, decided to point out. So it's a really weird story. I'd like to look into it more on my channel because I really think there's something to unravel there, including their relationship with this Thomas Paine of True Pundit.
Right.
Because apparently he's interviewed the 26-year-old and has video of it, and we don't know what he's doing with it. So I think there's something there. It's just that, frankly, I'm a little concerned to look into it too much. Because I don't know what the implications are of these, this group.
Thomas Paine, hasn't he made other claims previously that he's had secret documents and videos and things, and then they never materialized?
Yeah. Well, he was unmasked, I guess, or doxxed by BuzzFeed recently, and then he kind of doxed himself first. But his name is Michael D. Moore, and the story they pointed out was he said that there were two stories. One of them was that he had inside sources with the NYPD that had the Wiener laptop, and that there was tons of incriminating information on there, everything they needed, and it was just about to bust wide open. The NYPD had some rogue inside agents who were good guys or white hats, and they were going to turn over the information, and it was all going to come out, and Hillary was going to go down and all this stuff. So that was one of the claims that never came true at a minimum. Seems like it was probably fake news at this point. And then another claim that Lisa Page, in a closed testimony through unnamed sources, said that China had access to the emails, the Clinton emails.
Right.
And then after that, her lawyers came out and said that's patently false. One of the people who was there at the meeting also said that wasn't true. And they didn't retract it or anything, but it was another story they ran that they said was fake news. And then the same day, get this, the same day that BuzzFeed ran that article on Thomas Paine, and with the beginning of the story talked about how their story about Chinese hackers had been debunked. Later that afternoon, the Daily Caller published a new article based on unnamed sources saying that China had access to the emails. So it was almost like this, and then Fox News ended up running with the Daily Caller article, which I think was also fake news,
Trump said it too.
It was unnamed sources at least. If it was in the New York Times, people would say it was fake news. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, Trump said it too. Trump tweeted out that the Chinese have Hillary's emails. Yeah, I could believe because I was following that whole thing with I did the phones in Wienergate, the first Wienergate. The first Wienergate was the same agent, Gina Rodriguez, who's the same agent and was behind Stormy Daniels. So she ran the whole Wienergate thing too. Yeah, it's the same people.
Interesting.
And isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Let's take a little commercial. But I'll just say this. I can believe I was following that whole thing when Eric Prince was coming out making those hints and Julianne was making those hints that they found all this stuff on her laptop. And I can almost believe that it's possible that NYPD and that New York FBI did find some really good dirt on there. But I don't believe that they would suddenly become white hats. I believe that they would save that for their own blackmail purposes if they did have that. It would be mine. It's just too valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Let's take a little commercial break. We're with Nathan Stolpman. Fascinating guy. I mean, I'm really enjoying this. You can check out, really, man, I'm really enjoying this. It's just like a breeze, I could just sit here and just, hardly have to work. Just kind of just sit in and enjoy myself. Nathan Stolpman, Lift the Veil. You could find it on YouTube, but it's on all different podcast formats too as well. Truthclothing.io, where we'll have him describe that when we get back. He's having a 9/11 sale for that, and I suppose you have Patreon and all that kind of stuff as well too.
Yeah, Patreon, PayPal, everything is basically / Lift the Veil. PayPal.com/Lift the Veil, Patreon.com/Lift the Veil. We focus on the clothing thing. Just my wife designs them, and it's something where we can actually provide something for the money.
Yeah.
So it's not because people say, oh, you're e-bagging or this and that. So anyway, we just have fun with it.
Oh, I hate that begging stuff, man. I give them free. I give them extra shows. I give them extra content. Anyway, but now the clothes. Now this is stuff you actually sew yourself, or you use one of those cafe press that deals.
We design it. And then we get them printed here, screen printed by hand here locally, and we stock them and ship them. You know, most people go through these services that do digital printing, but we're trying to run it as a business because we get a larger share of the profits if we actually do the work, and it's really screen printed, and we get to choose a really nice, shirt. So people love it. It's almost like a little cult thing. And we have no marketing budget. I just advertised on the show. So
there you go. Yeah, free advertising. Okay, Nathan Stolpman, Lift the Veil. We'll be right back after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Check out CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with Nathan Stolpman, who is from Lift the Veil, and also truthclothing.io. Nathan, now let's go back to this whole Jenny Moore situation here. Now, and let's kind of just pretend you and me are pulling up on the scene here, and we're trying to figure out what's crap and what's reality. Now, Jenny Moore, there's the story that she's former law enforcement. Has that ever been confirmed by anybody?
Yeah, you can pretty much confirm it. I went and searched. She had a injury type of lawsuit, or basically she was working for, I'm trying to remember, a Northern California police force, and she had some sort of back injury and she had some vertebra replaced, and then had some kind of suit against them. So she had some kind of problem. She considered herself, I guess, a whistleblower against the police, and then subsequently at some point moved on to the kind of investigations that led her to working with George Webb. And, she was working with him on, I believe, some of the Imran Awan stuff, which supposedly they filed a federal lawsuit against Imran Awan. And I don't know if those federal lawsuits are just a stunt or what. And then she is involved in this other thing, too, and had her own YouTube channel.
Now, I seem to recall seeing a YouTube video one time where she was holding a badge and she had her hand over the numbers on the badge. But she was saying that this wasn't her badge. This was like her widowed husband's badge or something like that. Am I just misremembering, or is that possible?
Okay. That's possible. I tried to go through a few of her videos to see. She didn't show her face much on camera. Sort of like George Webb's brother doesn't show his face on camera very much. But yeah, I remember the video of her showing her badge. She worked for Tracy Police, and she filed a claim against the deputy DA. So that's her story. And then Robin Gritz's story also has to do with theoretically being a whistleblower at the FBI. She ended up having beef with Andrew McCabe. She had some kind of issue where she didn't get a promotion or was reprimanded or something because they said she was unstable after splitting up with her husband, emotionally unstable, they said. So she started beefing with the FBI, which eventually led to McCabe. And that's her theoretical problem with the government. So both of these two women, apparently have a problem with the government. And that's why right now they're working for the other side, theoretically.
And Robin Gritz, you said she investigated the Pentagon and also Boston bombing. Even if you're not one to go for all this crisis actors and fake blood and all that stuff, Boston bombing is a cesspool of CIA agents and informants and all kinds of stuff galore. FBI visiting these guys, Russia turning these guys in. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah, there's come on. There's enough there going on to blow whistles about if you're involved in the inside of the investigation. It's just ridiculous. But now, back to Jenny Moore. Now, she claims, this claim where she had this 26-year-old victim of Bill Clinton, was she making this claim publicly before her death, or did this come out after the death that people, this is what she was doing, blah, blah, blah?
That's a great question. I have to look at the sequence of events because it involves True Pundit as well. Because they reported on what she knew about. It maybe is that they reported on it the day of her death.
Yeah. The
fact that she had this 26-year-old, but this is where I had questions: is who did know about it, and if it was George Webb and Robin Gritz, were those the right people to know that she had that information? You know what I mean? If we really are looking at it as if there might have been foul play, even though right now they say it's natural causes and we don't have an autopsy yet, we'll see if we get one. Shouldn't we be interested in who had the information? Because it sounds like at least George Webb, Robin Gritz, and Thomas Paine at True Pundit all knew in advance of her death that she had this information or had very sensitive information.
They're saying they knew before her death, but is there any public evidence of this?
Is there any evidence of it? I'd have to look back. I'd have to look back through time and maybe ask around for people who are following it.
Because the thing is, there's a lot of unreality with this bunch. You know what I mean? They're dealing in a lot of fantasy world. Now with this Jenny Moore, again, we do know for 100% fact that she did die in that hotel. We know there was a real death. But then I start seeing a video where George Webb is claiming that he's talking to the coroner and the coroner's giving him information over the phone. These coroner's offices, they sell that information. You have to fill out a form, and they sell you that information. So this idea that you can just call up and become buddies with them and they're going to start talking to you over the phone would be just because you're a YouTuber is kind of ridiculous to me. Has anybody else brought that up?
No, and that's why it's good to be talking to you about it, because you know how things would go in this kind of a story, and even as far as now the police are saying she's dead, all the evidence is that she's dead. But what if it's like what happened with Seth Rich? What if there's no autopsy? or no death certificate? What if we get to that point? I mean, I guess I'm going to hold off. I'm going to shoot George Webb a question though and ask him if he's following up on that autopsy, because she's been dead for a little bit.
No, it's only been about a month. 4 to 6 weeks for an autopsy isn't unusual at all.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just had an uncle who died died in a car crash in California, and it was like 9 weeks, 10 weeks before,
Okay.
and it was nothing like this, Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, that's no big deal then. But yeah, you know more about how the process works of how George Webb would be following up with it, and that's definitely a reasonable argument for why you might not know whether to take George at his word on some of what he said. Right.
Now, exactly. Now, for people who just tuning in, exactly who is George Webb? That's not his real name, is it?
His name is George Webb Swigert, I believe, and comes from an interesting family. His father had something to do with satellite phones or mobile phones in terms of a major kind of invention. And he worked with the government on those kind of communications. And then he's also connected to his brother, Dave Swigert, who also seemed to have connections with the government, with the NSA. I got a letter, when I got into trouble with George Webb and Dave Swigert. George Swigert and Dave Swigert. Somehow I exposed the fact that they were brothers when it's a really odd situation. One of them is constantly criticizing the other one, or Dave Acton is just constantly making videos about his brother being an idiot or this and that, and so that happened. And I actually got letters from Dave Acton to my parents trying to get me to stop talking about what I was talking about videos. It's just another form of gang stalking. From the NSA, from Fort Meade, and it was stamped from there too.
Wait, but it was from him, from the NSA, or it was from someone some official at the NSA?
Or he said he had a friend of his send it from there.
Okay,
isn't that crazy? So
no, this is
who is George Webb? He talks about having worked with Mossad before. He talks about his affinity for the old Mossad. He says, "Oh yeah, I'm not okay with them." So he said before that he's okay with the rat lines a little organ trafficking. It's hard. I don't know where he's coming from, and he knows a lot about government gang stalking and government and targeted individuals program, and then he was involved in that Port of Charleston dirty bomb hoax, or whatever you want to call it, where they were live streaming and were talking about how they had information there was a dirty bomb on this container ship, and then one of their listeners called in and it shut down the Port of Charleston. Major thing. And then he didn't really get in trouble for that. Nobody did.
He did get arrested later on that night, but it was for first his friend went on there and claimed that he was drunk driving, but the actual charges were driver unable to control their vehicle, driver uncontrol of your vehicle, something like that. Where basically, I think he was asleep at the wheel at a stoplight or something like that. But then the story came out that he was out meeting a source. he had to go out and meet a top secret source, because that's what we all do 24 hours a day. We're out meeting sources. Right. And your phones don't work, emails don't work. You got to go to a stoplight and wait for it.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about him. Is he's driving around all over the country, staying in hotels. He didn't even ask for any support from his audience for a long time. And at first it was that he sold his house, but even that money would be gone by now. I mean, he's all he does is go out and investigate stuff. He works right out in the open. This is why I had questions at first. I was covering Hampstead, and they put a full campaign on me as far as the targeting, gang stalking, and all this stuff. And I was thinking to myself, how is this guy out running around just exposing stuff, going to government buildings and all this, and not a care in the world? I just didn't buy it back when he was covering Seth Rich even. So I don't know what he is, who he is. Like I said, it's not that advisable. I don't even know if it's that advisable to talk about it, because I think it's
Yeah.
You know, I think there's this thing on YouTube where there are people that are, you know, planted there to seem as if they're truthers, and then they're not, and they're actually something else. I don't know if that's the case with George Webb, but there is. I don't know.
But there is some drama with him and his brother. Now, are they friends, or this is a Mutt and Jeff act, or are they really? Is there a dispute between the two of them? Have you come to any conclusions with that?
The way it is on YouTube, and I had Dave call into my show just the other day because I was talking about Robin Grits and stuff. He says he's got some kind of federal lawsuit he's trying to file against exactly the people that I was looking at, which was George Webb, Robin Grits, Thomas Paine, and then I think Jason Goodman. He was saying they're involved in some kind of conspiracy to fool people on YouTube, pretty much. And wrapping into that, the way the Dirty Bomb shutdown of the Port of Charleston went down. So he claims to be exposing his brother, and he used to do that without anybody knowing that it was his brother. And that was where I got in trouble for exposing that thing.
And in all this, has there ever been actually something that George Webb has ever exposed or revealed, anything?
Well, I mean, you could argue, I guess, that his investigation into the Awan brothers could have you could argue that had something to do with the Awan actually being prosecuted, but of course it was a total sweetheart deal. There's no justice there at all for a spy ring. But he reported on that. He was known for reporting on Seth Rich, and I just think there are problems with the Seth Rich story at this point. He was known for that. And as far as exposing anything new, no, I don't think so. And
even everyone goes back to the Awan brothers, but what is it he discovered about the Awan brothers? This was the arrest of the Awan brothers was a public information,
Right. Well, he had been talking about it for a long time, so he might have been just to give him some credit or whatever the strategy is with this. He might have been one of the first people drawing attention to the Awan brother story. He may have kind of spearheaded that.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was well before the arrests. He'd been talking about what I didn't know what he was talking about, basically.
And so to sum this up, your conclusion, I'll tell you too. When I first got wind of George Webb, I was just sitting at home, and people started sending me this YouTube video in instant message in Facebook. And different people sending this to me and saying, "Hey, Ed, we got to make this go viral. Hey, Ed, we're trying to make this go viral. Help us out."
Oh.
Yeah. And I didn't know. I never heard of George. I never heard of any of these people. And then I started getting a little. I said, "Hey, this is something. This is an operation. This is people. This is an active, coordinated effort to make this video go viral." And they're contacting me out of the blue. And these are people who just friended me, who somehow know I have a radio show, so they've heard of me before, but I've never heard of them. And I actually blocked these people. I was blocking them left and right, and a new one would pop up a couple of days later. So yeah, that was my first experience with all that, and the same exact thing happened with those guys down in Tucson, the veterans on patrol.
Right.
Exact same thing happened. These people out of the blue start contacting me. "Hey, Ed, did you hear about this?" And then they're very aggressive and persistent. I don't know these people. And they act like we're on the same team. "Hey, we're all working on this together, Ed." You know what I mean? Yeah. We're all on the same team, Ed. What is your conclusion with the veterans on patrol?
Oh, that's an interesting story, and I removed the video from my channel, but I looked into it, and this is going to be, if somebody like Fiona Barnett hears this, she might turn on me because she's a big fan of Veterans on Patrol, thinks it's totally real. My conclusion looking into it, actually, you interviewed Faith and Cowboy.
I think your muffins are ready, Nate.
Man, somebody is absolutely bombing my. I know, I'm trying to.
Nate's got some muffins in the oven for us all, and I think the timer.
There we go. Do not disturb. God, somebody Speaking of them doing that kind of thing, I just got like 9 text messages from somebody I don't know. So speaking exactly of this, what was my what was the question?
Veterans on patrol, and you're saying
how right.
Yeah, Fiona believes in
it. So I looked at it, and then all of a sudden, I really didn't see a lot of evidence from the pictures that there was it was a child sex camp or that was a rape tree. And then as we went along, you and I both, I interviewed him after I saw him on your show, Faith and Cowboy, basically 2 homeless people who were there by the camp who knew Thomas, the transsexual who built the camp, apparently. I've spoken with him or her personally on the phone, and, she told me about the camp. So I'm pretty convinced based on the evidence that it wasn't a child sex camp, which is what people who support Veterans on Patrol still claim. And then where I ended up coming to the stories, I was following it. I saw this guy, Louis Arthur. Louis Arthur was at the Bundy Ranch starting trouble. He was at the Oregon standoff starting trouble. This is all documented. People for a long time have been saying he's a Fed or a narc or something. So he's got all kinds of record of this. He was the one making this whole thing go viral, once again using live video to kind of create this viral effect on Facebook, just exploding. And that it was engineered, like you said. I had people contacting me as well.
Yep.
Although some people just got really excited about it, to be fair. They thought, oh, my God, child trafficking right now, the way Louis Arthur pitched it. And I talked to Craig Sawyer, too, who he's being full-on attacked right now, and I don't even want to get in the middle. But Craig Sawyer said he was led down there because Louis Arthur told him there were kids in danger right at that moment, and I just Louis Arthur, there were a lot of issues. And then I saw him, they were replaying on video this episode where they walked into somebody's property. They just walk on somebody's ranch and start going through all the rooms of their house, an unoccupied house. And I thought to myself, well, that's trespassing. You can't just go out because you're researching or because you're supposedly looking for child traffickers in the middle of the Arizona desert. You can't just walk onto and into somebody's property, filming the whole thing, walking around with full-on assault rifles, some of them in full kit. And I said, that doesn't see. And then they also, there's video of them going up to the security camera, and someone says, they go, oh, there's a security feed. And the guy goes, not anymore. He cut the cable on it. And, I made a video about that, actually, and somebody saw it. And I unlisted it, actually, but somebody saw it and sent it to the police. And they apparently used it as evidence that to arrest him on trespassing charges, actually. Apparently, they credited me in a news story. This police officer said, oh, yeah, that video is very helpful. So I don't know. Fiona doesn't know that. And, she's adamant that this thing's real, and I want to maintain a good relationship with her. But, I did play a part in that story.
I tell you, you're getting around, man. You're making a big splash, man. You got your hand in everything these days. Good old Nathan Stolpman.
Yeah, so that was weird. Yeah, I think that was, and that's the truth about me when they're getting into this other stuff about the latest thing, the Voodoo Donut stuff.
Well, let's get to that in a minute, because I did you see my show that I did about the Millers and Bundy Ranch?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, yeah, and nobody knows about the Millers. The Millers was this couple, and the same kind of thing. First, they were involved in the Million Man March. They were involved in Occupy Wall Street. Then they they sell all their possessions. They come into Nevada to go and hook up with the Bundy Ranch people. Then they were the ones, the Millers, this couple, are the ones. And he had a felony conviction, too. He wasn't even supposed to be handling firearms up there. But he's the guy that started the whole rumor up there about the drone, the pending drone attack that caused the big rift between the 3 percenters and the Oath Keepers. They were pulling guns on each other. The Millers are the ones behind that. and the Millers were hanging out with this guy, Arthur Lewis.
Oh, really? Well,
Really.
that's interesting information.
The Millers, we found out for a fact the Millers here in town were informants, police informants. They were informing on their neighbors in their motel. The Millers went, loaded up all their belongings in a shopping cart, walked in the heat, the blazing afternoon heat, for 3 miles, pushing the shopping cart with guns in it, show up at a CC's Pizza, and somehow these two characters ambush 2 Las Vegas Metro Police Department cops while they're eating lunch. Get the jump on them and kill both of these cops. Then they go across the street and they to a Walmart and shoot a gun in the air. Says the revolution's starting. Then they shoot another guy in there, and then the cops. That's where the story gets real hazy. The cops come in. The Millers wind up dead. Well, the Millers, it was a suicide. Well, we did kill the Millers. We admit it now. We killed them. Like a month later, First it was a suicide, then the cops admit they killed him. The grainy video. You walk into a Walmart, you can see crystal clear video when you walk in there. You can see it yourself. But they got this grainy black and white video that they're showing at these news conferences. So there's a whole web of... and alternate media didn't want to touch any of this. I was screaming this story to everybody I could. And nobody wanted... Y'all forget it. You got to go back and find...
Man. Yeah, that was my feeling, was that he was a Fed, that he's some kind of... I mean, that's kind of why you're telling that story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was my feeling, and like I said, it's a very sensitive issue because there are people who care about child trafficking who think that it's totally real, and like I said, I don't want to get in too much trouble with those people, but that was my feeling on it. I thought that was worth pointing out, and stuff like that, and this QAnon thing. They say there have been mainstream media articles. I got on Media Matters hit list, basically. They put me on this. First, they said I was a QAnon pushing right-wing channel, is what they've been saying. And then in relation to the Voodoo Donuts thing, they've picked up the Media Matters attacks. But the good news is I didn't buy into this QAnon thing, and I don't buy into every single whatever you want to call it, conspiracy theory that comes along. And that situation in Tucson.
Yeah, the flavor of the month, that comes out that everybody on YouTube especially just jumps on the bandwagon, and they get all those hits. Nobody's going for those hits.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about still, man. You give me another hour, right?
Sure.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I love you, Jason. You're a guy to talk to. QAnon, Voodoo Donuts, we're going to talk about, and then your guy. You had something. There was something else you were working. Oh, Cappy, want to talk about? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're not going to run short, but don't let me forget. I want to talk to you about anti-Semitism. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because the last time you and me were on the air together, I think that was the main topic. It was that we're Jews. Yeah, me and Jason are Jews. Nathan, I'm calling you Jason. Me and Nathan are Jews somehow, and I guess we belong to the same synagogue or the same temple or something like that. Are you Jewish, Nathan?
No, I'm not. But one of the things they came up with is calling me lift the yarmulke.
Okay.
So we can talk about it. Yeah, there's a crazy whole movement going on with that right now. So yeah, we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, I'm not Jewish either. I was born Catholic. I'm a born again Christian now. I have not now nor ever been a Jew. You know what I mean? But I don't know, man.
Still say you are, though.
Oh no, forget it. Oh, that's like one of the first things. But all kidding aside, man, the rise of anti-Semitism, not just in the alt-right, but just in truthers, and this whole cesspool of characters who are involved in here. It's just, and they love to say, "Well, no, I'm not against Jews. I'm against Zionists." I'm not a Zionist either. I'm not in favor of the state of Israel, which is what Zionism means.
Right. I mean, Zionism, I'm not going to say it gets a bad rap. I mean, it's just that by definition, it basically just means you believe in the state of Israel and in its right to defend itself and self-determination, basically. But in reality, Zionists are in favor of, basically a one-state solution, the Greater Israel Project. I object completely to Israel's, the government of Israel actually a lot of things culturally, and there are things culturally about the Jews and the way Jews are raised, particularly in Israel, where they end up with no sympathy for other people, kind of, and no sympathy, because it's not just the government in Israel; it's also the people that don't revolt against what the state is doing. So, yeah, that's where it gets really weird. Is I talk about the things that those people should care about, and then they still come out and attack me. I talk about Jewish supremacy and how Jared Kushner is a member of this cult, basically this Chabad Lubavitch, which believes in hastening the coming of the Jewish Messiah, the Mashiach. I talked about that and all kinds of other topics, and still they'll come out and attack. I think it's some kind of, I don't know, psyop or some kind of trolling that isn't exactly what it looks like, but it's definitely a rising movement. I mean, most recently they came up with this thing called the Goyim Defense League. You might see people, if you did a live show, you would see them in your chat saying GDL. And there is just a rising, I guess, awareness about, issues like Jewish supremacy, dominance in media and banking, and people are starting to feel like they're having an awakening to that particular aspect of things, and kind of thinking that that's the whole issue. And now they've formed this thing called the Goyim Defense League, and it's one of those things. I think people should be able to do what they want. And a lot of the people I know who are involved in that stuff are good people, and they're just learning something new and maybe taking it a little further than I would. But that's going on YouTube right now. There are channels kind of dedicated to what you might call naming the Jew, that are getting a lot of hits. Like I said, I think people should be able to talk about what they want to be talked about and be into what they're into. But I do worry about what the backlash could be from all this stuff we see on YouTube, which could easily be called anti-Semitic, whatever that means. So,
I got you. Okay, we're with Nathan Stolpman. His website is Lift the Veil. His clothing line is truthclothing.io. And he's got all kind of Patreon and stuff like that. Check out his YouTube channel, Lift the Veil. We'll be right back with more of Nathan Stolpman right after these messages.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Check out CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH. Ooh, okay. Welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We're here with the host of Lift the Veil, Nathan Stolpman. I probably called him Jason about 20 times.
Not 20.
How many?
Just a couple.
And once I start, I can't stop. Nathan Stolpman, truthclothing.io, and it's Lift the Veil on YouTube and many other outlets. Oh, boy. Let's see. What does David Schroeder think about the...
Shoot, hold on, Ed.
Okay.
Sorry, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Okay, sorry. My mic cut out and that had my hearing in it. Sorry. So
that's right. Yeah,
I missed the last 10, 20 seconds.
David Schroeder, what is his opinion on veterans on patrol?
Oh, boy, David Schroeder. Well, this is the trouble, getting into this stuff because everybody was working together. Everybody was on the same team talking about exposing some of this satanic ritual abuse, which for some reason now has become sort of a hot topic. A lot more people are open-minded to hearing about it. And then I had some big interviews on my show, and two of them were David Schroeder and Fiona Barnett. And I just had a guest on my show, this guy Ron Patton, who writes. He was involved with Paranoia magazine, and then this show with Clyde Davis, I think it was. He's the executive producer, I guess, for that show.
Clyde Lewis, yeah.
So anyway, I had him on just Sunday, and apparently he had some kind of interaction with David Schroeder in the past, and I think they kind of broke up. And I think probably me having him on as a guest made David Schroeder think I'm compromised or that I'm disinfo now. And he had already, to be fair, done that before with previous guests I'd had that he didn't think I should have had on. I mean, David is very, very opinionated, and he often, goes through ups and downs with relationships, because I know about you and David also not talking for a long time, and I know about him and Fiona not talking for a long time. So anyway, I'm hoping I like David. I like working with him, and I want everybody to be on the same side and stuff. So hopefully that'll turn around.
I'm curious what he thought about veterans on patrol, though.
Oh, what he thought about VOP? I don't know that he has an opinion.
Okay.
It's Fiona that's really strong on it, and she's going after Craig Sawyer publicly on Twitter right now, as a result of their differences on that issue in particular. So,
I had Fiona on my show, and I even gave her a show. I gave her an airtime slot on Awake Radio. I don't recall her ever mentioning Tom Hanks. The guy now that everyone's pounded on. Is it Tom Hanks I'm thinking of?
There's this woman on Twitter, Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, who has a story about her own satanic ritual abuse, which seems very credible when you read it, but then has a story about being sold as a sex slave to Tom Hanks. Can't remember what age, 11 or 13. And Fiona picked up that story and reported it on her blog, kind of as if it's a fact. And so that was her connection to it. She picked it up from this other, alleged victim of SRA, who I do believe, as far as the stories I've read, there weren't many details about the Tom Hanks part. So, it's not what I would focus on. But anyway, that's where Fiona picked that up. And then since then, Fiona has said Meryl Streep was one of her abusers. Since then, I believe that's new information. She said she hadn't mentioned that before.
Right. And this Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, she seems to be a big fan of QAnon and President Mr. Trump. Now, it would seem that, what are you, just misguided? You're confused? You know what I mean? If you're legitimately tuned into all this stuff and you're clued in, because actually you're a victim of these elites and stuff like that, how could you not be aware of Trump's involvement in this kind of activity?
Well, it's a good question. It's a question I have, and it makes it difficult to understand where people are that believe in this QAnon and are still reasonable people. But I've realized there are just a lot of them. There are a lot of people who otherwise think totally rationally, who, for one reason or another, and maybe one of the reasons is there is a lot of truth, and there is this so-called red pilling where a lot of people are learning for the first time the way the government has lied to us, the way the mainstream media lies to us. So they're learning a lot of new information, and then I believe it's just very appealing to people, and maybe particularly people who want to expose this stuff or believe it will be exposed, or even victims of the kind of abuse. I mean, it's just a working theory that those people have some skin in the game in wanting to believe that the kind of people that abuse them or that they wanted to stand up to are going to face justice, that somebody is going to take care of it. And then just people who are still caught in this phony left-right paradigm, this, hero worshiping, politician worshiping paradigm, where you think that voting for somebody and because he says he wants to make America great again, that you can just totally get behind that. And yeah, so anyway, so that's one reason why you might want to question people like Sarah Ruth Ashcraft and Isaac Cappy, given that they're both into QAnon.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, Isaac Cappy too. And I just from talking to people who are my listeners, who are longtime listeners, who are totally reasonable people otherwise, and the fact that they were believing QAnon, I just didn't use that as a reason to discount what Isaac said or what Sarah Ruth Ashcraft said in general. Although, some of the specifics where they didn't present as much evidence, of course you should have questions about.
Oh boy.
What do you think?
I think you're right. I think some of these people are well-meaning people, And then you're right. And then they're dying for solutions. They're just becoming aware of this thing, because now it's the hot topic. When I was talking about this stuff 4 or 5 years ago, man, forget it. What's his name? Keith Rowland wouldn't let me on the Art Bell station. They were going to carry my show on there. And the first story was about the Franklin cover-up. And I'm not going to put that on my station. But who's talking about that kind of stuff? Pedophiles. Who's talking about that? You know what I mean? Nobody wanted to talk about this stuff at all. So I tell you.
No, what a weird thing, because I've been talking about it at least for a little while since I was looking into Pizzagate, but then specifically when I started to get into the Hampstead case,
right.
Rather in depth, multiple episodes. And that was spring of 2017. And you can see I did interviews after that with David Schroeder and stuff. You can see not that many people were watching that stuff. I mean, people were interested, and it would keep the views would keep trickling in. But it definitely wasn't something that brought you views. It wasn't the kind of thing that was trending. And now, through maybe this, there's a weird unfolding of events, and it definitely included Isaac Cappy. But whatever that did, it just exploded interest in people learning about whether this stuff might be true, and somehow being more open-minded than they've been in the past. And I'm not sure what that's a result of. It was a weird unfolding of events.
Yeah.
It started, I think, with the Twitter stuff, exposing the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn. I think it kind of started there with Cernovich, and then it kind of built up steam as people were digging up more of these references to kind of pedophilia and it being under the surface. And then the Sarah Ruth Ashcraft thing happened with the Tom Hanks story, and then that exploded. And then Isaac Cappy came out, and basically it was what he said about Spielberg, but then everybody else, that all of a sudden exploded this interest again, and people believing that there is some sort of widespread conspiracy of pedophilia, of child trafficking, et cetera, at the very highest level.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. Going back to McMartin and the Finders and all this stuff, it's right there in your face. The West Point, Aquino, all this stuff. I don't think there's any doubt, that there's a whole organized and blackmail is being used in all this, and there's this blackmail with the Epstein, and the Mossad is running interference for Epstein. We know all this, but then when it becomes so obvious, and they just start throwing these red herrings up, you know what I mean, to make us look stupid, I guess. Or even like I told you off the air about how I was contacted about a big case, and it turned out to be all, it was leading nowhere, and then the guy faked his own death, and then I found out later on the guy was arrested in front of my house, like 2 years ago. You start, I'm on the radar for a long time, and they've got long range plans for you.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I've seen some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been approached, I know, with stories that aren't real or that aren't going anywhere, that they think I would be really excited about. And it's hard necessarily to distinguish, but there are a lot of ways they kind of give themselves away too. But yeah, there are a lot of those things. Or did you bring that up because you think Isaac Cappy kind of might be something that's a distraction or a way to make people look bad, or was that a separate thing?
It's pretty much a sepaate thing. My only concerns with Cappy, my main concern with Cappy, is that business about that he admits that he was committed. He was, you know what I mean? He had that incident.
He does admit that?
Yeah, well, yeah, doesn't he? Wasn't it his own post that he wrote where he had that incident where the cops took him in a voluntary commitment?
I missed that, and I've heard a lot of criticism about Isaac Cappy. So that's that would be news to me. You could go ahead and email me something if you happen to have anything on that. No, I didn't hear that particular thing.
Okay, then why don't you describe the whole? Because since you're in contact with this guy, let's just assume that my that part that I believe that there was he told a story about how. He called the cops, and then the cops took him in for a voluntary commitment to be evaluated.
Oh, I see. I see. Well, okay, that may be the case. I know he called the police because I think because he thought he was being gang stalked or something, and talked to them about what was going on. Either that, or the police were called to go to his house after he put out a tweet about it raining 50 caliber bullets in the Hollywood Hills, a stupid tweet he put out. And, I guess that might have happened, and I missed just the detail of him saying he was voluntarily committed for questioning. But yeah, they probably did evaluate his mental health. So that's not something that would necessarily concern me. I mean, I think he was saying he was evaluated, and they determined that he's just fine and had him go home, pretty much. I think there are a lot of things people can criticize about Isaac Cappy, but he's stayed really consistent. I think his heart's in the right place. This is my read on him. I don't think he's a disinformation operation. In other words, I don't think it's a way to make people look bad. I think, he's just got a particular character about him. It's the way he is. I think his story about Seth Green stays very consistent, and there's other evidence that maybe backs up what he says. And then the other stuff that he doesn't have any evidence for, I don't know if anybody can say any of what he said was not true. It's just he didn't have any particular evidence to say Spielberg was a pedo or what have you.
Well, why don't you describe to us who Cappy is, what his story is, and how he came into contact with you?
Oh, sure. Well, he basically started telling stories on Periscope, as far as I know, which is live video on Twitter. It's just their app for live video on Twitter. He, as far as I know, he came out and started saying all these big names in Hollywood were pedophiles, including his friend Seth Green, admitting to him that he and his wife were into kids, basically, and that's the story he tells. So he came out on Periscope, and somehow I got wind of it. People were talking about it. It was trending, and I tuned in for kind of his first big video where he goes out and he's talking about the situation with Seth Green and what happened, and then also saying all these other names: Steven Spielberg, Stephen King. I forget everyone he named. And then I took that video because it was just happening on Twitter, and YouTube's a totally different world. So I took that video and I mirrored it on my channel because I thought, people would be really interested, whether it's true or not. It's this guy who is an actor in Hollywood who we find out was definitely good friends with Seth Green and his wife, Claire Grant, and saying this stuff about Hollywood. So anyway, I put out that video and I immediately started getting in touch with him, trying to see if I could get him on my show, because it was the kind of thing I was interested in. I thought I did the research into at least confirming that he ran in a Hollywood circle of friends, that it would just be weird for him all of a sudden to come out and call Seth Green a pedophile if something didn't happen, and there has been no denial, from anybody, but particularly Seth Green and Claire Grant about the story he told. So I just pursued him for an interview. Actually got some help from somebody else who had been in contact with him, and I got the first interview with him, actually before InfoWars and everything. I don't know if it's just from being persistent or also because I was, covering this stuff kind of favorably. I'd covered the Sarah Ruth Ashcraft story as well, and then carried his video on YouTube, which got a ton of views, and then eventually had articles written about. So eventually what happened was me and one other channel were talking about Isaac Cappy and Sarah Ruth Ashcraft, and the claims mainly that Tom Hanks, this girl was sold to Tom Hanks as a sex slave, and then that Steven Spielberg was a pedophile, which Isaac Cappy said. And then a few days later, articles came out. I'm trying to remember if it was NBC News, definitely ran an article. Ben Collins did, saying that the algorithm was rigged on YouTube because these videos, if you typed in Tom Hanks, the first couple of videos, it would be a video saying Tom Hanks is a pedophile. Same thing with Steven Spielberg. And when they showed the screen caps demonstrating that, it showed my video in each of the pictures for each of those things. So they ended up targeting those videos, basically trying to pressure YouTube, I believe, into censoring them, which they didn't do, but I actually deleted the videos that were featured in the article just in case. Anyway, and then things developed. I got Isaac Cappy on the show and kind of grilled him as much as I could on what details he really had and what information was basically just hearsay, which is most of the information he had about big name celebrities. He named a bunch of big name celebrities, which he basically, if you asked him for what his evidence is, he says, "Oh, well, everybody knows."
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. Which to give him credit, I mean, I think a lot of people think all the names he's mentioned that there is some evidence. Spielberg, this Crispin Glover essay about Spielberg from years ago. Crispin Glover was in the Back to the Future movies, or at least one of them before he quit. He had said something about Spielberg and little kids, and then there's this story about Heather O'Rourke with Spielberg, which is very suspicious. And then him with Drew Barrymore and those clubs.
And also that Australian boy too, that story.
Yeah, so Fiona told me about that, and I couldn't find I couldn't find the story, but I think she told me about it. He claimed to have been raped by Spielberg and George Lucas. Is that right?
There's a boy who was a stand-in, and I believe it was Spielberg, flew him into the United States and stuff like that. And who needs a stand-in from over there? You know what I mean? From Australia. But soon as Spielberg met him, he says, "Oh, I got to have this kid." And that's the story.
Huh. Wow. Yeah. Fiona told me there was an Australian who had the story about.
Right.
She said Spielberg and Lucas, and I was wondering if there was anyone out there. So there's at least one person out there who claims to be a victim of Steven Spielberg. So. And
it's interesting that Lucas bought up the Presidio base over there with all those underground tunnels where the whole Presidio daycare center thing took place.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I didn't know that. He bought that whole Presidio. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So your conclusion on Cappy is, you dealt with him off the air too, right?
Yeah, I dealt with him off the air. I think he's, I'm supportive, basically. I mean, I could criticize the way he presents himself or how often he goes on, but to be honest, I think he wants to expose Hollywood pedophilia. I believe that. I don't think he's a disinformation agent. I think he's a genuine person, genuinely doing what it appears he's doing. So. And as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of on the same side as I am. So.
Okay. So I guess Voodoo Donuts. Did you get a chance to listen to that show I did about Voodoo Donuts?
Yeah, I started to at least. It was with Illegal News, illegalnews.net or something. And I saw that come up when I was searching for previous stories about Voodoo Donuts and child trafficking, and that's what came up as a resource. The only thing about it was the only evidence I saw from those claims was kind of stuff about the symbolism,
right,
about the slogans, not really anything. And then there was a strip club that was loosely related to Voodoo Donuts where there was a 15-year-old stripper or something. And they looked into that for sex trafficking. But there wasn't much. What did you you mentioned what I was really interested in was this connection to Stratford that you mentioned on that show. But then I couldn't find any evidence of that connection. So this guy just on your show just kind of mentioned they had the location in Austin and then some other things, but.
Yeah, and he was a little. I know what you're saying. He was a little thin. The guy was a little thin. Yeah, his research, and he was a little frantic in his work too. Since that time, though, in my work, not radio stuff, but my professional work, I've come across some online comments of a guy who said he was a teen prostitute, and he worked at a Voodoo Donuts.
No way.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
If you have that information, or
I can send it to you privately.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But we can't because it's involving other work and that I can't.
Oh, I see. Okay,
put
so
out
I
in the
wouldn't
public,
be able to present it publicly to people, but you can at least.
I can send it to you privately. I can take a screenshot and send it to you privately.
Okay, but I couldn't show it to anybody. So you can, but you can say, well, I mean, what's the nature?
It's a conversation. It's a conversation between two guys on Facebook, and one guy was saying about how when he was a homeless teen in Portland, he used to work. He used to turn tricks out of Voodoo Donuts.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, there's a full-on attack on the guy I had on my show, Michael Whalen.
Okay.
Full-on attack from everybody trying to discredit him. But I hear more and more stories. Portland is, for one thing, a hub for child trafficking.
Oh yeah,
it might be the number one in the country or number two. So that's no joke. The symbolism of Voodoo Donuts is, I mean, their main symbol does have basically the little boy lover pedophile logo that the FBI identifies. Not that that's hard evidence, but there are tunnels under that place. There end up being these really crazy connections. Really crazy connections. First of all, Macaulay Culkin was apparently at two of these events where Michael Whalen, they call Vegan Mikey, said he witnessed child sex abuse, or as close as he could to actually seeing it happen. He put Macaulay Culkin at two of these parties, and you can definitely connect Macaulay Culkin directly to this club, Dante's, which is satanic. Macaulay Culkin is way into Satan now. It's all over his blog and his website. And this is crazy, and he's best friends with Seth Green. Right? So this story developed in such a strange way. And then on top of that, it connects to Pizzagate, because there are three individuals in the Portland area who Michael described as making child coffins or being coffin makers, that said to him that they were involved with Comet Pizza, Elefantis and Comet Pizza in D.C., and that they got away with it then, and they were going to get away with it in Portland. And those people really exist. I mean, there are three people you can directly connect to Comet Pizza and James Elefantis. One of them who is already featured in what people were investigating about Comet Pizza. His daughter was the one with her arms taped to the table in that picture you might have seen from the Pizzagate time. And they are there in Portland making coffins. I mean, so there are a lot of strange connections. There are definitely tunnels underneath that whole area of Portland. So a story about them being used for trafficking or drugs isn't totally out of bounds. There are lots of different people hypothesizing about stuff like that.
Yeah, the teen homelessness over there is, rampant, and also too the Satanism, like you said, over is rampant as well. It's right out in the open. Now, what's going on with Vegan Mikey now? Where's he?
Well, he's concerned for his safety. He claims to still be getting threats. He said he got a call that his friend was in the hospital, and it was over what he was talking about. He's, struggling to get set up. I mean, he was being evicted from his apartment, and he showed the notice and everything. And he said that was a result of, he claimed this gang stalking, which he had a lot of reports for crimes committed against him with the police. Anyway, his situation now is, from what he says, working with the police right now. But I think it's okay if he doesn't get into it, because if the police are going to help him out, they might have to deal with the fact that it wasn't dealt with before, that there might have been some kind of cover-up involved or what have you. So it's kind of a delicate thing, but the latest I heard is he is working with a detective who reached out to him and going that route for now. He said he had a friend who wanted to come out and support him since they were seeing all the attacks on social media. And he said he advised his friend not to do it, that, she had a family and stuff. And he just said it wasn't worth it because of the levels they'll go to discredit you or make you in fear for your life. He said he had somebody who was thinking about coming out, and he discouraged them from doing that. But that's the status right now. And then, I know there are a lot of people that know the same story that could corroborate what he said if what he's saying is true. So, it would be great if one of those people felt the courage to come forward. But I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, what would you recommend as an investigator what would you recommend? I don't know if you heard the interviews or what he said he witnessed and stuff. I mean, do you think there's anywhere to go with it?
Well, through Vegan Mikey, does he have any friends or relatives that are aware of what he's been through?
Well, he does. Yeah, he has friends, and the police too. There are 6 police reports within like a 7-month period or something for crimes committed against him: assault, burglary. Apparently like a top to bottom burglary of his house. His dog. He said his dog was killed. So there's all this stuff, and he said that with those reports, he reported what was going on, and yeah, he said he has friends who know about it. And it's just that the situation is with the cult or whoever does this gang stalking and stuff, that it's just they're in control, that it's such an extent that they are really able to do this stuff out in the open. So anyway, but yes, he says he does. There are people who can corroborate what he said.
Wait, but he says there are. But have you talked to any of them? Yeah, have you?
No,
okay.
no, I haven't been able to.
Yeah.
Is that a direction that's a direction I could go? I just say, hey, listen, even if this person doesn't want to come out, could I talk to them and verify their identity and stuff, right?
Yeah, talk to them off the record, and confirm.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not a private investigator. I'm learning how to do this as I go, so I don't always know the best ways to follow up. That's why I'm glad to be able to talk to you about it. Yeah, you know what? Let me see if I can. That would be great if I can corroborate the story just from somebody else telling me. They don't have to go on the air or anything else. So
right. And did you ever contact the people from Voodoo Donuts and try and get their side of the story?
I don't want to be accused of harassing them. And a number of other news outlets reported that they're giving no comment on it. But no, I followed up with the police on the police reports numbers that I was given and was able to verify that they're, real reports for crimes against him. They just wouldn't verify over the phone anything about the details of why he said the crimes happened and about the child trafficking and so forth. And I did follow up with one of the individuals connected to Comet Pizza, who is in the Portland area, and who was named, and who Michael Whalen said is named during the interview. So I followed up with him, was able to get him on the phone, and he vehemently denied it. He said, this is connected to Pizzagate, right? He says this is some Pizzagate conspiracy theory, which at one point he blamed on Russian bots, Russian and Ukrainian bots for spreading. But yes, I did reach out to at least one, and then he was saying, he was already talking about harassment and stuff. So I didn't want to get involved with people saying I was harassing people, so I kind of backed off.
Okay, let's take another little commercial break here. We're with Jason Stolpman, and his YouTube channel is Lift the Veil, and his clothing line is truthclothing.io. We'll be right back with more of Jason Stolpman after these messages.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Check out CartKing.com, 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country quickly. Maybe the facility you manage could kickstart revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services, like let's say you own an office building or a warehouse. Put one of these carts there in the lobby. Well, CartKing.com can be the answer to your needs. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee and food carts and kiosks money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor and outdoor carts and kiosks for any application. From large, heated, and secure outdoor retail or food kiosks to smaller, more mobile coffee kiosks or coffee stations, coffee carts, CartKing.com designs and builds them all. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on the website, CartKing.com. Please visit today at CartKing.com or just call them at 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you and you get a good deal. Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com.
Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing and distribution, and much, much more. Now you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. We're with Jason Stolpman from Lift the Veil.
Nathan.
Jason!
Right?
Oh, man, I'm so sorry. Nathan Stolpman. And I know his name is Nathan. I call him Nathan all the time. Nathan Stolpman. See, I'm getting old, man. I'm getting old. You start hitting 56 years old. Things change, man. See, not what you once were. What is your conclusion on Pizzagate?
Oh, you know what? Back when I was covering it, and you know, I was originally targeted when I was covering Pizzagate, and actually it's interesting that story came out, but I don't even know if I want to get into it too much. But I was covering it, and I felt like there was some part of it that was some kind of a psyop. Particularly, I thought the part that focused on it being kind of political, that it was the Democrats that were doing it, and that it was all focused on Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, and it was kind of being used to rally support for Trump, I found. Even though kind of at the time I did support Trump over Hillary Clinton, you know, the things he said, if he had followed through on some of those things, that wouldn't have been bad. I mean, better than Hillary Clinton, basically. But I still thought there was some kind of agenda being pushed with it, particularly the fact that Alex Jones and this guy David Seaman were involved with it. So I was kind of mixed. But looking back on it, there was quite a bit of circumstantial evidence and connections that you could make, that there's really something to it. I mean, you know, there's something to James Alefantis and his friends, the Instagram stuff. I mean, there's no like the picture that showed his friend with his child and it said chicken lovers.
Right.
You know, there's almost no way to paint that in a positive, you know, in a clean light. And then a lot of people point to the emails and say that some of it just has to be code. And I don't know for sure. Sometimes I think I can come up with an innocent explanation for some of those emails, but some of it was really unusual. So in general, I'd say there really was something there. And then it really, really interesting that it came back up in relation to this Voodoo Donuts thing. That's something I would have never expected. The 3 people connected to Pizzagate would have moved to Portland, be involved in making coffins, and then be incorporated with this story somehow. Just kind of crazy. So my feeling is there's something there. When you know, people say Pizzagate is real, yeah, I guess I would say that Pizzagate is real. I think there was part of it that was a psyop, you know, the part Alex Jones was in, and some of these other characters, and maybe it had to do with Donald Trump, and maybe it had to do with controlling what was actually exposed, because it became kind of a limited hangout for the main proponents of Pizzagate. They wouldn't provide the real evidence. They'd just kind of keep going back to the same kind of circumstantial facts. So I think it was used. I think it was kind of both. You know, it was real, but it was also used in some ways to misdirect people.
Yeah, I always found it interesting that the expression "fake news" was invented by Hillary Clinton about Pizzagate. You know, that when they came out to counter Pizzagate, that's fake news, and that's where the fake news originated from. But now it's been taken over by Mr. Trump, who's up to his neck in this kind of behavior, in my opinion, to totally cartoonize the expression "fake news." You know what I'm saying? Like, wouldn't he want to? Why would he be using the expression "fake news" when it originated against allegations against the person he hates more than anyone on the face of the earth? You follow me?
Well, it's like a lot of the kind of conservative side trolls do is you reappropriate
Right.
whatever they use against you. I can't tell you how many people on Twitter that follow me. Their name is deplorable, deplorable Dave or deplorable Robert. So people have kind of they just kind of take it and use it against the other side. So that's where the fake news things came in. And when I hear people who support Donald Trump, that's one of their favorite things every single time. They say, well, he called out the fake news. He was the one to say that CNN and everything else was fake news. And because people are legitimately, they don't like being lied to. And that's one thing Trump supporters all agree on is that, and it's totally true, that there's an unfair, biased news media that's trying to do everything possible, including lying, to overthrow the democratically elected president of the United States. So I understand why his supporters get behind him saying that and get excited when he says that fake news.
And what is your experience in dealing with the mainstream news media?
My experience about them writing articles about me and stuff?
Not just about you, but just stuff you know about and you see reported on TV that you might know that's accurate or inaccurate.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that just the thing of the moment is I get really upset about our propaganda about what's going on overseas. We just get straight lied to all the time, and what's going on in Syria right now is, to me, it should be infuriating to people that they lie to us just straight to our face, that there's no question about it. People like Nikki Haley, you listen to that and you just think, wow, this is our country, and this is what we're willing to say in order to justify killing people. And it like I said, it's kind of one of the reasons I started making videos in the first place, is just because I don't appreciate being lied to, and especially lying to other people who don't suspect it, who believe you. So that's my feeling about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you toward the end. I was going to say, this is a lonely road, to go down, to try and to present the truth to people and stuff like that. What is it that drives you to do all this?
Oh man, I don't know. I work really on faith. I learned that's the only way really to get through some of the obstacles you face, because people don't realize how much pressure they'll put on you, and and now having somebody like being on David Brock's list, and he's involved with James Alefantis too, so go figure that out. I mean, they can put a lot of pressure on you without necessarily breaking the law, without necessarily putting any fingerprints on it. But I believe and I have faith that if you do the right thing, that you'll be okay, and you'll be rewarded in whatever that way is. And I always had faith that if I just presented things the way I saw them, and was open with people and looked at the facts and presented the fact, that people would respond to it. And how do I keep going? Yeah, just faith alone, and then the support of my wife too. It affects your family, so you have to have support from the people you're close to be able to keep doing it. So those are the main things. I just try to do whatever seems like the right thing to do at any given time, and then if I make a mistake, then I know I can just address it and kind of take one obstacle at a time.
Yeah, but there definitely are consequences, both small, routine consequences daily, and then the big stuff that comes along. Yeah. Now, I was going to ask you about Hempstead, but is there any other topic? We got about 15 minutes left. Any other thing burning on your soul you want to cover? Topic you want to bring up? We covered a lot of things that are really interesting right now. No, I don't think so. I mean, we could talk about QAnon if you want, but we could talk about that a little bit if you want, but nothing else that's pressing. Okay, well then what do you make of QAnon?
Well, I mean, from the beginning, I followed it at the beginning. This is the thing, and I think probably we're of similar minds. It's not exactly easy to get in the head of somebody who has bought into it because we see it a completely different way.
Yeah.
And to me, basically the guy came out, made a splash or whatever it was, kind of got on the map with basically the first post, if not the first, saying that Hillary Clinton was going to be arrested like the next day.
Right.
And then another post maybe a week later saying that John Podesta or the Podestas and Huma Abedin were going to be arrested. And I even covered it. I said, hey, look at this, everybody. This person on at the time, I think it was maybe Reddit or 4chan, had posted this thing saying this was going to happen. Let's see. People are giving it credibility. And then nothing happened. And then I followed it a little bit more. And then there was a lot of people point to him somehow, or whatever Q is, predicting what happened in Saudi Arabia. And he had been talking about the situation in Saudi Arabia. So there's a little something you can maybe put on it. But in the end, I had trouble with the narrative. The narrative was suggesting that there was some kind of secret government plot to retake the government from this swamp, that somehow there were military intelligence involved in having Donald Trump elected in order to clean up the swamp, and that there was a secret plan that we couldn't see that Donald Trump was carrying out, and we just had to trust the plan and go with what people were saying was his 4D chess. And maybe just not naturally being beyond the left-right thing and not putting any faith in anyone. No one's going to be selected president that we really have any say in. It's all engineered. And I don't trust Donald Trump to do anything in our interest, in anything but his own interest. So I was naturally maybe disinclined to believe it, but I saw some narratives coming out of it. Like they were saying, we're going to declare martial law so that everybody can be rounded up and so that people don't freak out, and suggesting that wouldn't be a bad thing if they declared martial law, and that the military was the only people that could help us out. And then things like trust Mueller, like Mueller is somehow not doing what it seems like he's doing. He's actually going after the real bad guys like Hillary Clinton. So I just didn't buy it. I thought it was. And then there were things that were really troubling about it. I mean, trust the plan, first of all. It's very troubling because it puts people it lulls people into a sense of security or a sense of thinking that their problems are going to be taken care of by some outside force, and leads them to not do anything themselves, but just wait and trust the plan. I found that concerning. And then just totally bizarre things like a Q pushing for regime change in Iran. Out of nowhere, Q is saying, we should have regime change in Iran. I thought to myself, why is there it's a total Israeli. Then I thought there must be some Israeli influence on what's going out. Donald Trump must have known about it. Obviously, it reached millions of people. Seemed on the internet, at least, that anyone who supports Donald Trump seems to also support Q, at least in the internet, Twitter world, and YouTube world. So it was this major, major psychological operation on whatever level you want to call it. And to me, it was because of the power it had to influence things, to make things trend, to set the topic of conversation, just to be able to make a post and then have that, whatever you talk about in that post, be the thing everybody's talking about on YouTube and Twitter. I mean, that was a very powerful thing. And I did feel like it was being manipulated in some ways. And to say that the government didn't know about it and that was just these lone actors, I don't think that's realistic. I think there was some propaganda thrown in there, and there was a lot of stuff I think there was a lot of stuff in there to generate support for Donald Trump, when if people had just taken what they were seeing happen at face value, they wouldn't necessarily have the faith that they had from Q telling them to trust the plan, telling them that he's about to lock everybody up in Guantanamo and so forth. I think it's just dangerous. It's dangerous to promise people something's going to happen that isn't going to happen, or that you don't have evidence is going to happen. Of course, people want to see Hillary locked up. They want to see the swamp drained. But if you just keep promising people that, it's actually psychologically damaging. And they do psychological operations just to do that, to raise your hope and then to bring it down. And so those are the reasons that since early on, I was making videos about the problems with QAnon. So anyway, and now it's been debunked, supposedly, finally, in a rather clean and neat way by Jack Posobiec, who's former Navy intelligence, working for this channel called OAN, One America Network. He theoretically completely debunked it, but it just tied it to these individual actors and made it seem like just kind of your run-of-the-mill web LARP. I just have a feeling there was a little more behind it. A little Israeli influence. Just seems like the kind of thing they're into doing, manipulating online discourse. It's the kind of thing Greenwald wrote about from Snowden's documents about how they infiltrate these communities, change the narrative, discredit people when necessary. I mean, you could see all those kind of things going on with Q. So my final thoughts are that we never are going to know the whole story behind QAnon.
Yeah, but if the stated goal was a military coup, I mean,
I don't think it's going to. I don't think any of the predictions are going to come true. I don't think Donald Trump has any interest in locking up Hillary Clinton. Yeah. I don't know why people don't remember. That was one of the first things he said after he got elected. He said, "Oh no, they're nice people. Why would I go after them?" And now they think he's going to lock them. I don't know. All you can say is people are locked in that left-right, picking sides kind of mindset, and then they get drawn to this kind of thing. Hopefully the next red pill people take is to realize that it's all a show. There isn't anybody that's going to get elected president that's going to be there to solve your problems, to help us out. It's not in the way the world works right now.
Hey, you mentioned earlier about Jared Kushner being involved in this cult. Did you ever look into the business about Jared Kushner's father using that prostitute to blackmail his brother-in-law?
I sure did.
Okay.
I sure did. Yeah, I mean, what a cold-blooded dude.
Yeah.
He literally set up his brother-in-law with a prostitute and then apparently mailed him the tape to arrive on the day they were having a party at their house. I mean...
do you know anything about the prostitute? Was the prostitute a Russian teen?
Oh, the articles I pulled up about it, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it seems like these Ukrainians are the choice for the compromised girls. That's what the Israelis talk about using and so forth. And no, I didn't hear. I don't think I heard that. Just it said they were paid like $10,000.
Yeah, and Cambridge Analytica too was using Ukrainian girls because I had a little back and forth with Tom Arnold, and we were talking about this, and he kind of ignored a lot of things I was saying, but then he tweeted, "Charlie Kushner, Russian teens," right after I was talking to him about stuff I knew about, or I'd talk about off the air, and stuff that those two women I had that were talking about Trump Sr. dating a Russian teen. And then he put Charlie Kushner, Russian teens. And I had never, interesting, right? So, maybe there's something there.
Tom Arnold, though, he doesn't always have accurate information, to be fair. He said Donald Trump was going down a few times with information that he was privy to. I think he said that even on Fox News. And that was fake news. So
he does seem to be in the loop on a lot of things. As a matter of fact, he told me that the women who were the producers of that BBC Panorama story about is Trump a sex pest? That woman was actually staying at his house when I was talking to him. So he's in the loop on a lot of stuff. But the thing is, there's a whole level of stuff that people don't want to talk about, and there's a whole level of stuff that even Mueller's not investigating. Mueller's not investigating anything about the Katie Doe case or any of these allegations against Trump with these teenagers and stuff like that. Mueller's not even talking about it. And then any idea why that is?
1 second. Well, that's a good question. It's interesting to see the topics that Mueller ignores.
Right.
Because there is absolutely evidence, and it's been reported, that Israel and Israeli operatives, including this company called Psy Group, were involved in manipulating online discourse and were basically Israeli bots. The same way we accuse these Russian farms of doing, there's evidence that Cambridge Analytica was actively working with foreign assets to manipulate our election in favor of Donald Trump. And for some reason, the media won't touch that, and Mueller doesn't seem to be interested. So, like, there are plenty of reasons that you could take down Donald Trump, and for some reason, they're focusing on a hoax, you know?
Right. As a matter of fact, I'll send you this little video someone just sent me. The guy's dead now, but he's a former New York gangster. This guy's talking in his YouTube video about how Felix Sater was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and how and Mueller and Comey, Mueller, and Loretta Lynch. Loretta Lynch wrote a letter for this guy's for Felix Sater to stay out of prison. You know, she wrote the letter in his sentencing day. Loretta Lynch. And Sater's involved with CIA, he's involved with FBI, informed all kinds of stuff. And now we're finding out that he was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein all this time. And we know that Epstein made some kind of deal where he was giving information to Comey. So,
yeah, it's amazing. They just avoid that stuff. Yeah. You know, I mean, pedophilia is the ultimate. It's the ultimate thing. It seems like that's the one thing everybody wants. There are just too many interests that want to cover it up, and then you'll never see him bring it up.
Yeah, right.
Donald Trump, even though they could get him on it.
Yeah, Henry Vincent, the Confessions of a D.C. Madam. He's the guy that provided those gay call boys to the White House. He says, you know, at my parties, man, Ted Koppel would show up at my parties, and he would mention all the big news people and stuff like that. It's in his book. And this guy went to prison twice for talking about this stuff. He might be in prison right now again. You know, so it's there. Nathan, we're out of time, man. What do you want to leave us with real quick?
Nothing really. Just I'm watching the situation in Syria. You know, I hope that we don't go into some kind of. I hope that Donald Trump doesn't make the mistake of leading us to some kind of world war. You know, and so people should watch out for what the U.S. government is doing, what the U.S. government is saying about it, and call out the lies. Make sure people know that if they say there's a false flag attack, that there's a gas attack, that people are asking questions about it right away and telling their neighbor, because, you know, we ultimately, everybody, whether they're QAnon supporters, Trump supporters, pretty much everybody around doesn't want war, it seems like. And it would be great if people could just kind of, you know, focus on that thing, especially at times like this. So.
Nathan, not Jason, Nathan Stolpman, thank you so much, my friend. Okay, and I appreciate you giving me the extra time as well.
Thanks, Ed. It was great being on.
Good night, brother.
All right, see you.
Okay, they got Nathan Stolpman from Lift the Veil. Nathan Stolpman. I hate when I do that. I am getting older when I do make that kind of. Once it gets in my head, I mistake somebody's name. I do it over and over. I could have it written down right in front of me. I'm just getting old. You know, there's nothing I can do about it. Nathan Stolpman, Lift the Veil, is good, doing some great work. We don't agree on everything, that's for sure. But, you know, and people kind of laugh. And I says, oh, Ed, do you hear when he says this or he says that? But the guy, he's doing his best, and he's definitely, I believe he's sincere, and he has a great way of presenting it, too. So he's got a huge number of followers as well. So a lot of his followers, too, are just off the wall. You know? But there you go. Nathan Stolpman, Lift the Veil. If you like today's show and a lot of the topics we discussed, check out OppermanReport.com. We have a special members section there, and I got exclusive stuff in there that you're not going to find anywhere else in the world. McMartin Preschool, I have the geologist who used his ground-penetrating radar, and he went there with his own eyes. He witnessed a hand-dug room underneath the detached garage at the McMartin Preschool site. Has nothing to do with Ted Gunderson's geologists and tunnel reports. It's a totally different story. No one's ever interviewed this guy in 40 years. I have interviewed the people who lived in Steve Bannon's porn and meth house, and they described that. And there's no doubt that there was porn and meth going on in that house. There's police reports. His ex-wife got arrested for trying to smuggle a phone and marijuana into her boyfriend. So the boyfriend and the ex-wife and Bannon were all there at the same time. Domestic violence reports out of that location, but they've reported to me they found padlocks on the inside of these doors and windows inside that house to keep somebody in. And they talked very seriously at the end of the interview about how they hoped that human trafficking investigations would come out of it. like I discussed, what's his name? Tim Tate, who did the producer and director behind Conspiracy of Silence about the Franklin cover-up, and Henry Vincent, Confessions of a D.C. Madam, the guy who was there with Craig Spence and all that kind of stuff, with all those, providing those prostitutes, went to prison for it, and they came out and were brave enough to come out and talk about it. All this content in the member section. Maurice Simonet, Blacks for Trump guy, was involved with the Yahweh Ben Yahweh cult. Tried to cut a man's head off with a dull machete. 13 murders under that cult's belt. And then you see Blacks for Trump, Maurice Simonet behind Donald Trump, President of the United States, holding up the sign, Blacks for Trump. Trump turns around, gives him the thumbs up. Guy was on trial for murder, trying to cut a guy's head off with a dull machete. Talk to him. All exclusive in my member section. I have in there exclusively documents. I have the video of the search warrant execution at Jeffrey Epstein's house. I got the 24-page letter where Jeffrey Epstein talks about how he was in charge of founding the Clinton Foundation. OppermanReport.com. Contact me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com. I'll give you a discount, 13 months for $65. Thank you so much, Jason Stolpman. Good night.